Hello, everyone. I am Mali Pompadith, and today I am accompanied by
Victor Cora Nazaria.
We are co-founders of the SOAR Community Network and SOAR Nebula. Our work is to develop compassionate, transcendent leaders who are contributing to a more compassionate, cohesive, and collaborative, what we call C3 world. Thank you for tuning in, and to SOAR Nebula Change Agent Series, we bring you 1,000 change agents, community leaders who are creating positive social impact for their communities. And we're delighted today to bring to you Dr. Danielle Ramos Cruz. Hi, Danielle. Thank you so much for being with us.
How are you, Mari? Everything's good.
I'm so happy to have you. And I'd love to start by reading and sharing with our audience a little bit about your background, because I think it's quite impressive. And then we'll have Victor come in and share with us some funny anecdotes of how you know each other. So Danielle is originally from Bayamón, Puerto Rico, where he attended the primary and secondary levels in the public education system. He then completed a Bachelor of Secondary Education history at the Interamerican University of Puerto Rico. Then he went on to the Center for Studies for Dominican Friars of the Caribbean, where he had completed a Master's of Arts in Theological Studies. Later, he completed the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and Letters with a specialty in the History of America at the Interamerican University Metropolitan campus. There he defended a dissertation on the history of mentalities and death. From 2002 to the present, he has served as the official historian of the city of Bayamón, and a year later, he worked at CEDOC as a professor of modern church history. Later, he joined the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Humanities at Bayamon Central University. Whew, that is so impressive. I tried to read all that, but hopefully I did you justice. Thank you again for being with us. Victor, how did we find Danielle?
Well, it was easy for me because I've known Danielle since I was about 15. So that was a very long time ago. I won't say the decades. He's a childhood friend. We used to play guitar together and sing blues with his dad every once in a while at his house. He's a beautiful human being, always has been. One of the few people that I could say that from the time he was a child, we knew he was going to do something great. We just didn't know what it was. So that's how I know him. So it was easy to pick him as a change agent. And especially this area of history is so unique and so interesting. And Danielle, when he speaks about these things, he does it in a way that it's almost like watching a movie. So it was a no-brainer picking him for this first change agent interview.
That's wonderful. Well, we are revising this change agent interview, Danielle, and the reason why it's so important that you're here is, as we talk about compassion in the world and creating more cohesion and more peace and harmony for all of humanity, and then creating a culture that we're collaborating and innovating and creating together so that we evolve as a human race. We wanted to feature someone who understood history and the evolution of man. So the fact that you studied philosophy, I'm just so fascinated by that. The fact that you wrote a dissertation on just how we think and how we see the world and also how we live. The idea of history being a part of who we are is critical for evolving as a transcendent leader. We can't evolve and grow as humans if we don't know where we came from. So thank you very much for the incredible work that you do. Now, as we begin the interview, I'm going to start asking you some questions. First, to have you share your personal journey in your life through your experiences. When have you experienced kindness, empathy, compassion? And is there somebody or a group of people that come to mind who have changed the way you've seen the world and how you lead today?
Well, first than everything, thank you for the invitation.
You're very welcome.
It's very nice for me to see Victor again after a few years without seeing him. Well, the first time, I believe that the first time I felt kindness in my life is my childhood. I believe I started feeling those things here in my home with my parents. I am the only one son in my family. You see, I don't have brothers. So I remember my father and my mother being very kind to people. And they were, you see, not very religious, but they were good Christians. And they started giving me that sort of education since very early in my life. And if I have to talk about that experience, I have to say that it was with them that I first started with that. Then besides that, I remember my time with the Dominican friars, because I don't know how you say this in English, catequesis, el catecismo que hacemos en los católicos. In the Catholic tradition, we do the catechism, and I remember that all my religious formation since the very early years was with the Dominican friars here at the Iglesia de la Santa Cruz, very, very close to my house. And there I received that other kind of kindness, education, and loving thing.
What made you decide that you were going to study what you study? Why did you choose philosophy? Why did you choose history as your work in the world, as making this a part of your life's mission? What inspired you to choose that path when there are millions of paths that you could choose? Why this field?
That's a question that I am still asking me since I began this journey long time ago. I have to say first that everything started when I was very young. But when I went to the university, the first year I went to the university, I was thinking of being a musician. Do you remember, Victor? I was trying to be a guitarist.
You were very good too.
Thank you. I was trying to do that. So I went to the university to study for music, to be a music teacher. That was the thing I wanted to do first. But I remember that since I was very young, I have this inclination for understanding things, for analyzing things. And more than everything, I felt that I was looking for knowing. You see, when I was very young, I was confused about two things that looks alike, knowing and wisdom. But I was not looking for wisdom because I didn't understand that thing yet by that time. So I was looking for knowledge, for knowing. When I went to the university, you see, when you are a freshman, these people there in San Germán, they prepare your enrollment for the first year as you were a freshman. When they told me by the third semester, they told me, now you can do your own enrollment. So I turned to everything that I wanted to do. So I started a long journey in different courses that were not related to what I was doing. Until I finally met this guy, this doctor in history, that really, it was the first time in my life that I remember that I wanted to be like another person. Just by knowing this person, Dr. René Velázquez Gotay. It was the name of the person he just passed by. And he was a historian, he was not a philosopher, but he was such a great historian that he can talk about philosophy as well. So I start this journey relating, let's say, I start this journey paying attention to history more than everything. Philosophy started to emerge as a secondary need for the other thing I was always trying to understand, which was religion. So when I finished my bachelor degree, when I went to the Escuela de Teología, there I had the obligation to study philosophy in order to go to the theology program. So I started philosophy, but with the friars. So my philosophical background is strongly related to the church. So I study with friars, I study with fathers of the Dominican order. And with the intention of understanding religion, then since very young, I remember here in my house, I started reading the Bible and San Agustin. I started reading the Confessions of San Agustin and things like that. I developed at the same time this inclination for history because they go one by the other. These two disciplines go together.
I wanted to ask you a question, Daniel, if you don't mind, Mali, because this is very interesting.
Please.
I wanted to ask you something. I've been listening a lot to Joseph Campbell, and he talks a lot about philosophy and religion being kind of like sisters, meaning that it's a way for humans to understand the world, but especially I want to hear your thoughts on this, our way of dealing with death. And that's very important. So you've talked about this a little bit in some of the videos that I've seen, that you talk about eschatology. And I wanted to ask you a question about that, see if you agree with that thought, meaning that this is a way of dealing with life, but also death. Because our theme, our thing, what Mali and I do, it has to do with transcendence. And when it comes to leadership, right? But obviously, philosophy and religion have to do with that as well. So I wanted to hear your thoughts about if this religion and philosophy all about dealing with humans and that they're going to die.
The first way of understanding reality was religion. Historically, if you pay attention to the human being as a historical factor, you will understand that the first relation that the human being had with the nature is theological. The first question that arises, who I am, from where I come from, where I'm going, so where I belong. So the person starts by asking questions of the transcendent. It always is going to looking at the transcendent thing. And those questions are the ones that will be creating philosophy, because philosophy is a byproduct, as I understand it. Philosophy is a byproduct of theology. Theology comes first, and then from theology you have economy, for example. Economy is a development of theology. In this aspect of history and religion, I have to go to my language, I understand, because I have to say a few things that are strongly related to the language. Maybe Victor can help me to place this thing out.
Yeah.
When you talk about economy, for example, in the capitalism world, you will have Adam Smith as one of the basic economists. Adam Smith was a Presbyterian shepherd. So the position, the theoretical position of Adam Smith was strongly related to Calvino, Juan Calvino, John Calvin. And the relationship is strongly related to the perception of Luther. So the whole thing related to the banks, the desarrollo de la banca, la creación del préstamo interés, no sé cómo pudiéramos decir eso.
The creation of loans and interest. Yeah.
La Iglesia Católica tuvo que manejar profundamente su teología para poder permitir la existencia del préstamo interés.
Right, because so Daniel said that the Catholic Church had to maneuver a bit to permit the fact that there are things as loans and interest. And I think, Danny, if I'm not mistaken, in Deuteronomy, right, it says something about it's kind of like a sin making money from money. So exactly. They had to make some acrobatics to make that work.
In theological fact, we have to establish that it's strictly prohibited to earn money from money. It is a strong prohibition en el Deuteronomio.
Right.
It's strongly prohibited. Entonces, Calvino, the theologian, he started with the prohibition in the Calvinian Reformation. But then Luther did it as well, and then the Catholic Church as well. But by the time, with the emergence of the bourgeoisie and the emergence of the classes of the bankers in the Central Europe, the church was in the need of making loans, as well as the kings and the kingdoms. So, for example, Spain was in a deep loan problem by the time they discovered America. You see, it's something that nobody talk about this, but los reyes españoles, the Spanish kings, were in a very horrible debt problem when they conquered America. So all the gold from the Indians went directly to Spain, but didn't stay in Spain. All that gold went directly to Germany to pay the bankers. It's the process of the evolution of the modern world.
Right.
So this is only an example of how religion, politics, ethic is related, and everything is related to the same, let's say, to the same source of knowing. And the other factor is that it's not only Christianity, it's not only the Judaism that say the same thing. You can see all these positions in the rest of the religions as well.
Okay.
This is so fascinating to me. I feel like yo tengo que aprender más, Daniel, because what you bring to the table is, as a historian, is all the things that we don't get exposure to in public schools unless we know what we're looking for, unless we're searching for knowledge from different perspectives and vantage points that as it relates back to transcendent leaders. Transcendent leaders are those that are constantly seeking to see the big picture, the whole picture of the history of the world, of all the things that make up where we are today in society. So like I said, I have to learn a lot more from you. And as we come back to compassionate, cohesive, and collaborative cultures and worlds, can you share with us how history and philosophy contribute and can contribute to creating a more cohesive, harmonious, compassionate world? How can you relate your work as a philosopher, theologian, and also a historian? How does your work help us create a more kind, compassionate world?
Well, first than everything, I would like to say that I am more a historian than a theologian or than a philosopher. I just passed by all those disciplines to be a better historian, I may say, because I finally understood that understanding theology, understanding philosophy gave me the tools for me to be a better historian. I am in the need of a lot of categories to develop theology or to develop philosophy as the point that I would like to do it. So I prefer to deal more with history and stay more focused in what I do, especially with the history of mentalities. With that being said, I can tell you that the history of the world, the history of humanity, the history of a sector, the history of a community, because you can bring that's the good thing about history, is that you can bring it to any level in society. You can do a history of a company, you can do the history of a person, you can do the history of a community, of a town, which is what I do here in Bayamón. I am the historian for this community. The good thing about this is that this sort of discipline helps you to understand the reality, because that's what history is. It's a method for reality interpretation. So as you can do a good interpretation of reality, then you are supposed to be more humane. You're supposed to be more human. If you understand history better, you are supposed to be more human, because you can start to understand the sacrifices of the people that you cannot see now because they all die. But between you and your past, there is a lot of people, in terms of African perspective, as we are in the Caribbean, we call them ancestors. We have a lot of ancestors between ourselves and our past. And it is a lack of respect to simply understanding that we alone are creating this reality that we have, all these things that we have, because many people die, many people suffer for us to be here at this time. That's the main thing. And the other thing is that history, it's supposed to give you, as well as theology, as well as philosophy, it's supposed to give you humbleness. It's supposed to show you that you are small in front of the world, in front of the process, of the whole process. You are a tiny grain of sand in this big ocean. So you make the difference. You can make the difference, but you have to understand that the difference can be created by, how can I say, by a group of people. It's created by a big community is what create the change. So you cannot do it alone. I can be the best historian, maybe, I don't know, maybe I can be a good historian, maybe a bad historian, but I need the work of the other historians that already died. Because I remember one father in el seminario, one of the fathers in the seminar, he used to tell me, Daniel, we can be good theologians, but we are better if we step over the shoulder of the giants of the past. You can try to understand theology the best you can, but you cannot do a good work if you don't step over the shoulders of San Agustin, or if you don't go to the shoulders of Santo Tomas Aquinas, and you look from that shoulder, because he's a giant, he sees far, far from where you are. So you have to always keep in mind that the work of the other is what makes you be better. And that's especially important when you are working, because everything that we do is a matter of teamwork. You see, my friends in the municipality make me look better when they do their job. When they get the job done well, they make me look better, because when I take the things beyond, they are giving me the work done. And if I do my things good, they will look better, because everything do its part.
I love that you said that, because one thing about as being a leader that's very important is understanding that you are standing on the shoulders of giants, of people that, did things with less resources than we did, with less technology to get things done. And we are able to further their work, right? Because now they build all those tools for us. And if you have that in mind all the time, I feel, and I hope you feel this way too, it makes you feel like your work is even more important, right? Because you can't drop the ball, right? Yes. They pasaron el batón, ¿verdad? They pass you the baton. Now you can't be the one that drops it. You have to keep that relay race going. So it makes you feel even that your task, as tedious as it might be sometimes, is still important, right?
Claro.
If you think of transcendence, right? Because it keeps going.
Exactly. It's the same thing in religion. There's another idea that is important to bring here. In religion, we say that when you have knowledge of the revelation, it doesn't matter the religion, Christianity, Islam, it doesn't matter. If you have access to the revelation, if you have access to that, your responsibilities are bigger. Mm-hmm. Because now you know things that the rest of the people don't know. So you are supposed to be better person. In Yoruba, they say wapele for good comportamiento, to a good character. That's the word in Yoruba, I remember. The same thing in Christianity, the same thing in Islam, the same thing in Judaism. The more you get close to the being, the higher are the expectations about you. And you can bring that to the job as well. You see, if you are a leader in your specific field of work, you have more responsibilities. And that responsibility is strongly related to be a good person, to have a good character, to have a good humor, to deal with the people.
Danielle, you said this so beautiful. It reminds me of what Dr. Maya Angelou said about when you know better, you do better. And this is part of the work of evolving from transactional leadership to transformational leadership to now what we're encouraging our colleagues, our friends, and the entire world to evolve into transcendent leadership, because the world is requiring us. There's so much knowledge and information out there that we can find now that our parents and our great-grandparents did not have access to. And this wealth of knowledge can be utilized for good and not the opposite. And being able to have, like you said, giants from the past that have meticulously documented this for us, it would be such a shame, a waste, and like you said, a dishonor or disrespect to their commitment and sacrifice to gift us with all this knowledge and wisdom to not do something powerful with it. So I really appreciate that you are one of those giants, and for future leaders and future historians, they're going to be speaking about you the way that you're speaking about those giants that came before you. And that's transcendence. That is true leadership. So I honor you for that. And as we close out the interview, because we can speak to you forever, and maybe we'll come back and I'll freshen up my Spanish, and then we can do this whole interview in Espanol. But until then, please share with us how our audience can find out more information about your work, or maybe see some of your work and find you. How can we contact you?
Well, you can contact me up by the web, web page of the Municipality of Bayamón, municipiodebayamon.org. I guess it is in Spanish, but we are working on translation for the whole thing. And I will be presenting more of my works there in that page specifically. I have one book already about the life of one of our mayors, which is a collective work that I made concerning the life of Ramos Luis Rivera Padre, which was one of the oldest mayors in Bayamón, and the more time for the person that was in office for the most of the years. And my thesis, my doctoral thesis, is about to be published also. We hope to do it as part of the municipality effort for the history of Bayamón, because the thesis is concerning that and the municipality of Bayamón. O sea, his history of mentalities concerning that since the 18th century all the way to the 19th century. And it's my work, so I say it's a good one. It's a great work concerning, it's a huge thing concerning how people react in front of the death, and how those reactions concerning that impacted politics, impacted the way of the administration, because the history that I do is one of the administration of the municipality. So I take into account the testaments, or how you say, the last wills of the persons. Those last wills, I read them and I establish connection between them and the philosophical thinking of the time and the popular thinking of the time, because history of mentalities is the combination of what the scholars used to think in schools and what the people think in the real world. So you mean there is this point of connection between the scholars and the popular knowledge. And at the end, you really don't understand who is in a better position to answer questions. If it is the thinker in his room with his books and stuff, or the common people that are suffering, the common people that are fighting everyday life. You see, it's knowledge coming from all those points. For me, it's important. Basically, that's where you can find me. You can find me at the homepage of the municipality of Bayamón. And I hope you guys enjoy reading the things that I place there.
Well, we thank you so much. Victor, would you like to provide some closing thoughts or comments before we close out the interview?
No, just to say that I want to make sure that we feature Daniel's work. So we'll make sure that we post all the URLs that he mentioned. And it's always a pleasure talking to Danny. I mean, whenever I call him, we don't call that often, but when we do, we end up talking, an hour or two, because it's a very interesting, and I'm an aficionado when it comes to history and all that stuff. So I love hearing about this. So it was a pleasure. And thank you for taking the time, Danny. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Daniel. Thank you. We'll have you back again and again, because there's so much wisdom within you that we want to also share with the world. So again, muchísimas gracias. Thank you everyone for listening. If you're an organizational leader and you wish to learn more about building your C3 culture, please visit us at soarcommunitynetwork.com. If you are interested in joining our Nebula Resource Hub for Transcendent Leaders, please visit us at nebula.soarcommunitynetwork.com and check out our membership benefits. We appreciate you for joining us today. And as always, thank you for tuning in and for being a part of the SOAR Community Network. Take care, everyone. Appreciate your time. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.